In this lecture, we're going to work on listing the files the user has uploaded. The first half of the page is complete. We've managed to provide upload capabilities for our application. The second half of the page will allow users to modify the songs they upload. I've provided a basic UI of what that would look like. The user's songs will be displayed as a list. They'll have two options. They can modify the file or delete it. If they choose to modify a file, a form will appear. The form can be used to change the name and genre of the song. You have the knowledge to tackle this on your own. If you wish to try it on your own, then go ahead. I will say that there are challenges you'll come across when trying to make the form functional. If you get stuck or don't feel completely confident doing it on your own, then that's fine. We'll be doing it together. I'll be sure to point out the issues we face when building the second part of this page. Before we write a single line of code, we should consider how we're going to approach this. We know that we're going to need the list of songs the user has uploaded. A request to the database will be necessary. We also know that we're going to have to loop through the data once we've obtained it. From there, we can make the buttons interactive. Lastly, we'll need to make the form functional by submitting the changes to the database. Alright, now that we have a general outline of things, let's get started. The first step is to retrieve the data from Firebase. We want to retrieve the list of songs the user has uploaded so far. The data should be requested before the component gets loaded on the page. It would make sense to use a lifecycle function. In the editor, we'll be working in the Manage component file. Down in the script block, we'll add the created lifecycle function to the exported object. The created lifecycle function is the earliest moment we can request the data. We're going to make the function asynchronous by adding the async keyword. There's one important thing I want to point out about asynchronous lifecycle functions. Vue will not wait for the code inside to be executed if you're writing an asynchronous function. This will mean that the component will load the template onto the page even if we have an asynchronous lifecycle function. It's not a big deal for us. We'll proceed with making the request. Firebase will need to be imported into the component if we want to make a request to the database. At the top of the file, import the Firebase file for the songs collection object and authentication service. We're importing the songs collection object because we want to retrieve the list of songs from the database. This object will allow us to interact with the collection in the database directly. The authentication service will let us retrieve the ID of the user. If you can recall, we stored the ID of the user with the song data. This will help identify the user who uploaded the song. We want to make sure we're filtering the songs retrieved to the songs uploaded by the user. This is why we're importing the authentication service. The next step is to begin requesting the data. Back in the created function, we're going to perform a query. The word query means to request data from a database. We want to query the database for the songs. Querying can be done by calling the where function on the songs collection object. The songs collection object comes with functions for retrieving documents from inside it. We don't want to grab every document in the collection. The where function helps us with filtering through the documents. At the end of the day, documents are objects. We can create a condition to check if a property matches a value. We can pass in 3 arguments for creating the condition. We're going to create a condition for checking if the user ID in the document matches the ID of the user logged in. The first argument is the name of the property it should check in the document. Pass in UID. This property is where we're storing the ID of the user in the document. The next argument is the comparison operator. Pass in equals equals. Lastly, we need to pass in the value to compare to. We've already imported the authentication service. We can use the current user object to access the UID property. This function will generate a query instructing Firebase to search through the documents in the songs collection. It'll check if the UID property is equal to the ID of the user currently logged in. If there's a match, it'll return the document. This function is an asynchronous task. We'll need to add the await keyword before the function. The last thing we'll need to do is initiate the query. The where function doesn't begin searching through the collection. It merely creates the query for searching through the documents. We can initiate the query by chaining the get function. This function will return the documents it finds. We'll want to save the data from the response. The get function will return a snapshot. Assign the documents returned by the function to a variable called snapshot. We're finished with querying the database. We have the song data returned by the database. The next step is to display the results to the user. We'll handle this situation in the next lecture.